All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am your host, Ben Jusela, and I am super excited to be hosting today's edition of 17 Minutes of Science. We have a very special guest today. She is a fish researcher extraordinaire. She's been everywhere from zebrafish to gobies to electric fish. That's right, I said electric fish. Get excited. I'm not going to waste time trying to introduce her further. I'm going to let her introduce herself. Kassandra Ford, welcome, and thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me. So I'm Kassandra Ford. I am a PhD doctoral fellow at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and I'm also a PhD candidate. My research currently involves looking at the morphology of skull shape in electric fish from South America and Africa.
Which is just, it's so niche and so cool, and you're like a rock star among fish researchers.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for joining us today. I did want to give it a second to let you introduce yourself. In a minute here, I'm going to hit our 17-minute timer for 17 minutes of science. I think without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So my first question for you is, can you tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about how you got involved in research and what that looked like for you pre-candidacy and PhD candidacy at Lafayette?
Sure. So I actually got started with doing research as a freshman in my undergrad institution. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I almost said Louisiana. It's just so indoctrinated in my brain. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for my undergrad and got involved with an undergraduate research scholarship program. And I actually joined a neurobiology lab my freshman year and got started with a professor there named Mary Halloran, who uses zebrafish as a model organism to study neurodevelopment and kind of put that research from zebrafish and try to apply it to, humans as well. So that was, I guess, where I got my research start, but it kind of blossomed from there. Did a couple of projects working for some graduate students, and that really kind of got me started with the art of science. So I continued that with a couple of research positions after I graduated, and then applied for grad school.
Yeah, so what helped you, what made you decide to make the transition to graduate school from there?
So I worked for a year as a lab tech at Texas A&M in Corpus Christi. That was where I did my work on gobies. So I worked for a year in that lab. And between the kind of 2 or 3 research labs that I worked in before starting grad school, I just really fell in love with science. With science, there are always questions. You kind of work your way to try to figure out how to answer those questions. And as soon as you think you have an answer, you have 15 more questions that have stemmed from that one answer. And so both of those mentors in those labs really pushed me to think about the scientific process. And when I really showed an interest in it and was, fairly good at it, kind of showed some potential, they both really pushed me towards the track of grad school. Before that, I hadn't really known that you could go and get like a PhD in biology. I mean, it makes sense, like when you think about it, but growing up, that had never really been on my radar as a career or something that I could do. So both of those professors kind of pushed me towards this particular track because I was so interested in asking questions and trying to figure out how to answer them.
Yeah, and I know others have found that it's really important to have mentors like that sort of give you the push, especially if you're not brought up around people who have done research or have been in academia, and just, kind of open your eyes to that path forward and let you know that it's actually an option.
Yeah.
So what made you decide, so moving into your graduate program, what made you decide to study electric fish?
So I had kind of a little roundabout way of applying for grad school, I guess. So in biology, you really need to reach out to professors at a university before you even apply for grad school. So it's kind of like this little, almost like a secret. Once you know it, you spread it to everyone, but it's a little bit of word of mouth that you don't just apply to a biology program for a master's or a PhD. Instead, you have to contact the professors in that department, reach out to them and let them know that you're interested in working with them. And so once I realized that that was what I needed to do, I'd done some research on, PhD blogs, which was how I found that out originally. I had like this giant spreadsheet of like 50 different graduate programs. So I was like, I want to apply here. I want to go here. I want to do this. And so I just cold emailed all of these people thinking like, okay, maybe I could work with this fish. Maybe I could work with this. Was kind of struggling with that a little bit. And then out of the blue, I actually got a cold email myself from the University of Louisiana, from our department graduate coordinator, I think is his title. He had seen my GRE score and was like, you're like pretty smart right there. Maybe you should think about coming here. And so I looked at the website for University of Louisiana at Lafayette just to see what professors were there and see if any of them, if their research programs sparked my interest, and got that spark because my current advisor is there and he studies electric fish. He's, I think, the only like taxonomy based or like true like fish scientist. There are people who study, ecology and ecosystems and food webs and stuff in terms of fish, but he was the real like fish scientist of the group. And when I saw electric fish and started looking into them and reading the literature of them, I was like, my mind was blown and I was hooked. So emailed him kind of in response to that email from the graduate coordinator, and everything kind of fell into place.
That's, I mean, I don't know how you'd be able to look down this to see electric fish and then even bother looking at anything else that's on that list.
Right, like electric fish, like you tell it to anybody, like, oh, I study electric fish, and it just immediately is like, what?
Excuse me.
Come again?
So what does your day-to-day research look like? Like, what kind of methods are you using? What kind of questions are you trying to answer?
So large-scale questions that I'm trying to look at are the evolution of skull morphology in these two different groups of electric fish. So my advisor mainly focuses on a group from South America. That's kind of what he's built his research project on. But there's another group of electric fish that is found in Africa, actually. And if you just kind of qualitatively look at some pictures of these fish, looking at the outside of them, there's some pretty interestingly similar head shapes between the two groups. So at this point, they're not really closely related anymore. They're not, like sister to each other or anything like that. And so this is a phenomenon known as convergent evolution in biological sciences. And my goal is to try to quantify that. So I am using methods like geometric morphometrics to try to quantify shape. So I'll place landmarks on specific, like well-known points of the skull, like end of the mouth, top of the skull, that kind of thing, that can be found on all of the species of fish. And then I can use statistics and math, which are, I understand to some level, but it's also kind of like this fancy math stuff that whoever figured it out is a genius, honestly. But I use this math and stats to actually quantify shape. So I can tell statistically how similar these two groups of fish are in terms of their head and skull morphology. That's I guess the gist of it. Yeah.
So has your research sort of, how much of it has sort of gone on hold with the pandemic, and how much have you been able to maintain moving forward?
So I'm actually pretty lucky. At this point, I can work a lot from home. How I'm getting all of my data is actually using CT scans or CAT scans. In like the medical field, they're called CAT scans. So I put all of my fish into this little can, put it into a little mini CAT scanner, and use x-rays to try to get at the shape of the skull, so I can get like a 3D image of the fish's head. And so I've actually done, hopefully, fingers crossed, so I can actually finish this degree. Hopefully I have done my last trip of actually scanning the fish. And so now I just have all of these big data files of fish skulls. And so now I'm at the point where I am doing the geometric morphometrics. I'm putting these little landmarks on all of these 400, 500 fish skulls. And so I can do that from home, actually. I have my awesome handy dandy desktop computer that has been my pride and joy for the last 2-3 years. And so this is actually kind of in some ways helping me with productivity, because I can see the light. I'm like, okay, I have all of the data that I need. Now I just need to process it. And so I'm trying to power through and process as much as I can. But it is a pandemic. If anybody else suffers from anxiety like I do, it's also kind of a traumatizing time. So I'm giving myself some grace. I work when I really, really am like, when I want to work, I'm working. If I work for 3 hours and I get to that point and I'm like, you know what, I just like don't think I can do this, then I give myself a break. You can't force yourself to work for 8 hours a day if your brain isn't going to be in it, and it's not worth it to try to force yourself right now.
Yeah, and I myself find that I get diminishing returns at a certain point. It's like, you know what, I got to set this down, and I'm going to be more productive when I revisit this fresh. I'm probably just going to start making mistakes and get angry now.
Exactly. And my stuff is so tedious that it's like, I need to make sure I'm on point for putting all of these landmarks on. Because if I not really caring, or I'm not in the mood and I get distracted, I could end up making a mistake that I'm going to have to go back and fix anyway. So I really want to make sure that when I'm doing my work, I'm doing it to the best of my ability as well.
You have also been busy with some other things during the pandemic. In the last week. What's happening here? Lost my light. You know what? I'm just going to ask the question and then I'll address the light. So there we go. Okay, we're back. Tell us about this. You are co-organizer of Black Birders Week. Your Twitter has been blowing up. Tell us a little bit about that and what sort of sparked this.
Sure. So if you haven't been on Twitter or Instagram in the last week, you might have missed it. But a group of Black, I'm going to call us outdoor enthusiasts, I guess, because not all of us are scientists, not all of us are grad students. We're all just people who love the outdoors. Jason Ward, who's a prominent birder from New York, he's all over Twitter and Instagram. He actually created a group of just Black outdoor enthusiasts, I would call us, like I said. We created a little online group to just kind of talk about things. So we could talk about life, we could talk about science, birds, fish. Birds versus fish is always a big hot debate. Or social issues as well. I'm definitely team fish, I gotta say it. But when the incident happened with Christian Cooper a couple of weeks ago, a couple of people, including Anna Gifty in our group, decided that this could be an awesome opportunity to kind of capitalize on this attention and bring about some positive conversations and bring some positive attention to Black people in the outdoors. So we kind of put it all together in about 48 hours or so. Had 5 days of some awesome content that we were going to try to promote, and also did some pretty awesome live stream conversations, talking about what life is like for us when we go out and do outdoor things, whether it's research or just hobby things, and really just tried to bring attention to the fact that we all love the outdoors and we really want the outdoors to be available and safe for everybody. So it was an awesome event. We had so much public attention for it. And so, like you said, I turned all notifications off on my phone. It was not buzzing constantly, but I would open up Twitter and it would every single time be 50 notifications on Twitter. And I think I went from like 200 Instagram followers to now I have like 13 or 1400. And I was like, I was not expecting that, but it's been absolutely incredible to see everyone engaging and learning and kind of starting this conversation.
Yeah, that's I have been following along as best I can, and it's been really cool to watch it progress. And I hope that momentum carries.
Yeah, no, we hope it does too. We're hoping to have some other weeks that kind of feature some other fields and stuff like that. But I think we're definitely going to have an annual Blackbirders Week coming up. So
absolutely,
yeah.
that's awesome. And so it sort of touches on our what we were talking about previously with the importance of having mentors that sort of push you forward and show you that academia and science is a career and something that you can do. Can you speak a little bit as to how the roles of mentors that you've had and things like representation in science have impacted you and your motivation moving forward?
Yeah. So going to college and even coming here for grad school, I haven't had a whole lot of mentors that looked like me. I think my first Black teacher, if you can call it, was a professor of African American Studies at UW-Madison. And since then, I have not had a single Black biology professor since then. I think we have a real problem of representation in STEM. The scientists are there, and especially kind of in these up and coming generations of people obtaining their PhDs, we're here and we're ready. We're ready to join academia and make a change. But kind of going through this process without somebody who looked like me, I've had to go elsewhere, I guess, for those mentors. And so whether it was going to Twitter or finding even just woman mentors, I've definitely found quite a few of those and really rely heavily on them to kind of brainstorm ideas and talk about how I should be doing things moving forward in order to try to make a change. But I'm really hoping that all of this attention that we're getting as Black scientists and outdoor naturalists and everything is showing this up and coming, generation of kids that you can do whatever you want to. It doesn't really matter what you look like. You can be Black and you can be a scientist. You can be Black and study fish. Like you can do whatever you want to. You can sit there and join that birds versus fish debate, even if you don't know anything, even if you just sent out a tweet saying, hey, birds versus fish, why are pipefish so cool? Why are seahorses so cool? Like, we'll join in on that. We'll get in. Come on. Like, let's engage with you and really spark that interest in science and inquiry. And I think those are really the only, like, all you need to do science is ask questions. 17 minutes. All you need to do is ask questions. That's my final thing.
There we go. I always have trouble turning the timer off. Yes, so we're at the end of our 17 minutes. It always flies by. I was just wondering if you wanted to plug or promote any organizations. I know there are a few that are targeted at improving access and diversity in STEM.
Yeah, so a couple of charities that my little organization is plugging are Backyard Base Camp, based in Baltimore, and also Black Outdoors. So those are kind of the two charities that, if y'all are willing to put some money where your mouth is in terms of helping diversify STEM in the outdoors, that's really where we want some help to go to. But otherwise, you can follow us, follow our journey as we promote Black scientists and Black outdoor people. We have a Twitter group called Black AF in STEM on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm also on both of those platforms at Kassandra, KASSTHEFISH.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you for sharing those. For anybody who's watching, I don't know how you've come in. If you look at our Twitter, we've got all of these linked in there. We'll throw some of these in the Facebook page as well. And if you have additional questions for Kassandra, feel free to comment them, DM them, email them, send them by carrier or pigeon, and we will get them to her. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and talk about your career. And
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
All right. Well, until next time, folks, we will be talking and thinking science, and we will see you then.